Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode where we're diving deep into the journey of an extraordinary GMAT success story. Our forum member, Sandipan, recently achieved a phenomenal 755 on the GMAT focus test, a perfect 100th percentile score. With only a few months of prep, Sandipan not only identified and overcame his weaknesses, but also refined his approach to each section of the test. Today, we'll explore his strategies, the challenges he faced, and the unique techniques that propelled him to success. This episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. But before that, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to support us bringing you more inspiring stories like Sandipan's. Let's get started. Okay. Hi, Sandipan. Welcome so much. Congratulations on your score once again. Thanks for joining today.
Hey Shelby, thanks for having me. It's really a great. The GMAT forum, GMAT Club is an amazing forum for all the GMAT aspirants. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks so much for sharing your debrief. For those who would love to read it, it's still there in the forum. Check it out. We'll put the link somewhere here in the chat. But yeah, let's just quickly start. And let's start with you sharing a bit more about yourself with our audience.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Sandipan Haldar. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in 2022. Currently, I've been working as a software engineer for the past 2 years. And I started my GMAT journey in around February this year.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thanks for the intro. Let's quickly now dive into your GMAT journey. So you decided to take the GMAT back in Feb, and with just 1 month of prep, you took your first attempt in March, scoring a 625. So at that point, you realized that there were 5 major weak areas that you needed to address to achieve your desired score. Let's discuss these one by one.
Absolutely.
So I think first was time management, correct?
Yeah, so in my initial attempt, right, I downloaded the original guides that we have. Yeah, I could figure out that I have some major lackings. So coming to the time management part, so GMAT is obviously an exam that tests your speed. Like you have a lot of time constraint. You have to answer a fixed amount of question within a very short time, and you don't get right. So time management, like the difference between GMAT and other exams is like in other exam you can instantly skip a question that you are weak at. Like this is a weak topic, you can just skip the question, save that time, and invest that time later into that question and get it right. But in GMAT, you can't skip all the questions. Like you can review 3 questions at the end, but that's not an ideal way to go for it, right? So for the GMAT, time management is different in the sense that you need to have an optimal sense of time you spent on a particular question before you know that you have to move ahead from it, right? If you get it correct, it's fine. But if you can't solve a question, you need to know the time by which you need to move forward, move to the next question, right? And having a sort of a biological clock is very, very necessary, right? Because see, let's say you have 23 verbal questions. You need to know that by the time you have reached the 10th question, how much time should be remaining on your clock, right? So, and so basically this applies for every section, mostly for DI also, because DI questions are pretty big. So if you're stuck in a certain kind of question, you need to know when to move on and by what time you should have completed what amount of question. So yeah, that's the major time management approach that I think applies for everyone.
Of course. And then next was for you reading comprehension. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so again, the thing, so I also, being an Indian, I also prepared for CAT, which is the entrance exam for the IIMs and the premier management institute for Indians, right? So the thing about reading, we also have, yeah?
Did you take the entire test? Or did you try giving it, or was it just preparing for it for a little bit?
Yeah, I gave the exam. So actually CAT happens at around November. So I gave it in November 2023, right? I think it was around 99.5 percentile there I got. So the thing about CAT is like you have four comprehensions, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I figure, what I saw, what I observed that even if you get 2 to 3 questions correct, right, 2 to 3 passages correctly, it's a good enough attempt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can choose the topic of the passage according to your interest. Like let's say you got a passage based on philosophy, you don't like philosophical passages, you can just skip it and
Interesting.
choose another passage.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't apply for GMAT, right? Even if you don't like a passage, so you have to attempt it, you have to go through
Mm-hmm.
it, right? And so again, like the main, I think the issue that everyone encounters, it's that how to approach a passage in which you are not interested, in which doesn't suits you, right?
So
So regarding that, how I tackled is like the eGMAT course was, I think, good enough. They provided some basic, very important points, right? When to pause, when
Mhm,
to when to ask the right questions to the passage. Yeah, how to get yourself invested, how to
mhm,
feel the passage interesting, right? This you have to learn by yourself, like through a lot of practice, right? The thing is like you can summarize the whole passage by each of the sections section wise.
mhm,
You can also ask the passage questions like what should come after that, in which direction the passage is heading, what could the author of the passage suggest after this line, like that. So
mhm,
basically just engage yourself a bit more instead of blunt whole reading, because after by the time if you do a blunt reading, right, what I felt was by the time we reach the end of the passage we often forget what was at the beginning.
mhm.
So that's one of the major things, like how to keep yourself invested without losing concentration. And
Makes
the
sense.
second thing is, I think that this doesn't apply for like RC only. This applies for the whole GMAT test. Like one should learn to take very efficient notes, right? So you don't have to go back to the passage looking for the answers everywhere. So
Mm,
once anyone masters that thing, like how to take efficient, what you don't need to write the details of every passage because that would take up a lot of time,
makes
right?
sense.
So if you learn how to take efficient notes with the correct points, that will help a lot when answering the question.
Makes sense.
And
I'm surprised though you took the CAT and then you wanted to take the GMAT. So, when did you take the CAT? May I ask? Like, was this
yeah, so CAT
wait?
happens in November every year, right? So
So that
so
was, I guess, 2 months before you started your GMAT prep.
yeah, that's one of the head start that I got. Since I was already preparing for CAT, I had a basic overview of the reading comprehension, the quant side, let's say. Right.
Makes sense. All right. Okay. So we discussed about the time management, the reading comprehension. Next is maintaining focus. How come that
Yeah.
was your major weakness?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this applies for a lot of people,
Everyone.
as right, who are seeing to take the GMAT. The focus thing is, and to be honest, there is no shortcut to this. Like you have to get rid of distractions by the time the exams are approaching.
Mhm.
This we have to go back to our school days exams, right? Those approaches, they are the good old approaches, and they work the best. Like get
True,
rid
true,
of distractions, practice a lot, simulate the environment through mocks, like how the actual exam will be, right? Get yourself familiar. So yeah, like to be honest, maintaining focus doesn't have a lot of secrets on how to approach this point, but
that's true.
it's the good old strategies that work.
Yeah, there are some people to maintain focus. What they do, they already book their test date. Like because
Yeah,
they know
that's a
that
that's a
you're
very
gonna
good thing.
for
Like
it. Yeah. So I mean, I find that to be quite beneficial, but at the same time, like, what if something happens and you already paid for the test, and now like you have to actually take it? Like, that's where there are downsides to that as well. But we'll definitely discuss like how we overcame each weakness in just a bit. The fourth thing that you wrote as your like weak area was test anxiety. Let's talk a bit about that as well.
so test anxiety, I think it's mostly about how you don't know how the test center will be, how the environment will be, if there's going to be a noise outside, like the variables that aren't under our control, right, on the
Mm-hmm.
exam date. So the main here also the generic advices works the best, like keep yourself calm, and the major thing is give a lot of mocks, because those at least that's the one thing you can control, right? And if so in my case, since I gave the GMAT twice, so I already visited the test center once beforehand. In the first attempt, I booked the same test center for the both of my attempts, right? So yeah, so
Oh,
I
okay.
knew so that was one familiarity that helped me, because I knew how the room is gonna be like, how the environment is gonna be like, right?
And you
The
took the
test
test
anxiety.
in Hyderabad, or where did you
Oh,
take your
I booked the test in Kolkata
in
actually.
Kolkata? Okay. I always wonder, are test centers different in different cities and states in India? Are all of them the same? Because in my previous debrief, someone said I took the test in like a northeast place, and there was barely anyone in the test center because not a lot of people take the GMAT there. So I found that quite interesting. But how was your test center experience in the first attempt?
So in both of my attempts, like the test center experience was pretty similar actually. If like what happened is the test center is very good. You have a fully air conditioned room. You don't get a noise. Like those things are absolutely fine. But at the
Yeah.
same time, the test center is very small. So you have only three, I think five computers, let's say. And I think in the
Hmm.
second attempt, I was the only one who was giving the exam. Like there was no
Oh,
one else in
nice.
my slot.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky, lucky,
So
lucky.
so yeah, you get the room to yourself. Like it's you don't get that's what sometimes helps with the test anxiety. Like
And did you take it in the morning, or what time did you take your tests in both
yeah, so
cases?
for both of my attempts, I booked the same slot. It was actually 10:30 in the morning.
10:30 in the
So
morning.
yeah, 10:30 to 1 p.m.
Nice, nice. Okay, we'll definitely talk a little bit about your whole text experience in a bit. But your
Absolutely.
last major week area was balancing prep with work, which of course it's a struggle for many people out there who work full time. How did you manage?
Yeah, so I think most people who give GMAT does it with a full-time job, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my approach to balancing prep with work, mostly continuing with the GMAT prep, was that I had a study plan, right? But it wasn't super rigid. Like I had have to finish this by this day, not that. It was mostly week based. So I have to finish this by this week, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the second thing that I always made sure to do was I didn't let 2 or 3 consecutive days without any prep. Let's say, yeah, maybe you have a hard day once, right? You couldn't study at all that day. It's fine,
Yeah.
completely fine. But
Yeah.
make sure to cover it up on the next day. If it keeps piling up, then on the subsequent days it will be harder to get back getting it back on track.
That's true.
So it's
All
so it's
right.
always better to give at least maybe 1 or 2 days, but that's the upper limit, right? Without a
Yeah.
prep.
Yeah, there has definitely has to be consistency. Otherwise, sometimes I feel like you forget with all that's going on in your life. So, good tip. All right.
Yeah.
I think we've covered now your weak areas and how you sort of overcame them. Let's talk a little bit about your whole preparation process, from your first to your second attempt. Could you walk us through your study routine, practice schedule, and your preparation methods during those 3 months?
Yeah, sure. So, if I do for the first attempt, right? So, I didn't since I so my initial assumption was that since I have already prepared for CAT, I'm done with most of the theory, or which I was wrong at, by the way, right?
Hmm.
So I thought that I have done with the theory. So in the first attempt, I mostly booked the Experts Global. They have 15 mocks for, I
Yeah.
think, I booked that one, right? Because I knew that I had to compete with the time management thing. So I booked the
Mhm.
15 mock, and I just went through the OG materials, right?
Yeah.
That helped, but yeah, obviously it needed a lot of refining. Another mistake that I did for the first attempt was I didn't analyze my mocks properly. So I
Mm.
bought the mocks, let's say around 2 weeks before the exam, right? And I just gave them all in a hurry. And what it resulted in was my score kind of plateaued between, I think, 655 or 675. It kind of fluctuated between
Mhm.
those two. I didn't improve a lot. I didn't, like, it was stuck there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So after the first attempt, I took around 1 month break in the April. Then in the May, I enrolled in the eGMAT course, right? There, by the time I figured, by the month I took my break, I figured out where do I need my major improvements, like what are the things I need to work on, right? And then by the time when I enrolled in the eGMAT course, initially because like I said before, GMAT you can't have any major weakness, because that's
Yeah,
where if you have some portion that you know that you can't solve, it's gonna affect your score at the end,
that's
right?
true.
So initially I just focused on those areas first. I covered up my weak topics, and then for the like around, let's say, 3 weeks before the exam, I gave my first mock. Then for each of the, let's say, every 3 or 4 days, I attempted one mock test.
One mock test. Oh, and eGMAT was the only course you took in your second attempt? Was there any other?
Yeah, I enrolled. So I tried the free version of the TTP also in the first attempt, but mostly the second attempt was mostly based on eGMAT score.
GMAT. And on the first attempt, I think it was mostly self-prep, right? Because you just took the mocks.
Yeah,
And
it was mostly self-press and the experts global, the 15 marks.
so do you suggest, because there are a lot of people who say you can have a high score with self-prep, but would you suggest preparing yourself or taking up a course?
That will vary from student to student, right? Like it will completely vary from person to person. If you know that the weakness that you have you can solve on your own, right? Then it's completely fine. But you know that you have some, maybe you need a lot of help on theory, let's say. Then it's always better to have a particular, tried and tested course
Yeah.
compared to experimenting yourself. Particularly if you are short on time, let's say you need to give GMAT within the next few months, it's better to take the tried and tested route of
Makes
enrolling in a certain course, let's say.
sense. Someone here did ask about the eGMAT mocks. How tough are they compared to the real GMAT focus? Did you take the eGMAT mocks as well? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, I took the eGMAT mocks the second time. I think they have 5 mock tests, let's say. So the eGMAT mocks are good because my score is kind of similar to what I got in the eGMAT mocks, right? So I would say that they are similar to the main mock, right? Main exam, not the main mock, main exam. But the thing is, like, you may have a chance of getting like lengthier questions in the main exam, like the questions that have a lot of wording. So that's one thing you need to keep an eye out for,
Makes
because
sense.
I felt that in my case there were a lot of questions that has a more. It was a bit longer compared to the ones that I'm used to.
Makes
Right? By
sense.
longer I means in the statement, the longer statement.
Makes sense. All right. And also, guys, if you do have any more questions, just feel free to put it in the comment section down below. And since you guys are here, give this video a quick like. Go, 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 go. Do it now. All right. I'll move on ahead. Now, let's talk a little bit about the improvements that you made in each section. So let's talk a little bit also about the unique techniques that you apply to boost your scores in each section. Let's begin, I guess, with your improvement in the verbal bit. How did you go about that?
Yeah. So verbal was, I think, the major weak point for me, right? So coming
Is that
to
like a
the,
normal thing for every engineer? Because like every engineer is always like perfect with quant, but when
so
it's verbal, it's a toughie.
I think so. Like the thing is, like engineers are mostly inclined to problem solving. So once you give them the first approach for R is just dive into the whole thing, like take a pen
Yeah.
and paper and try to solve it, right? But the verbal is not like that. You have to first understand what it states. So yeah, mostly I guess it's a fair thing to say that we face a lot of issues when it
Mm,
comes to verbal, right? Yeah, for my case, I'll go with the CR first. So the
yeah.
CR was good. So for this, I think I prepped the CR for the first time, like in my first attempt. I did the TTP free trial, right? They gave 5 days of free trial. I did that, right? That was my initial start for my CR approach. That was very good, actually, right? And so the CR was not an issue for me because the statements are smaller compared to the RCs, right? You read one short, let's say, short statement, and then you answer the question based on that. So the CR was good enough for me in the first attempt also. I think around in the 9 questions from CR, I think I made one mistake. So the CR was good for me. In the second attempt also, I made a couple of mistakes in CR, by the way. But that was mostly because time issue. Like, yeah, how much
Mm.
I felt like I couldn't understand the question by the time I had left. So it was mostly
Mhm.
towards the end. So around question number 21, 22, those are the questions where I made the mistake.
Yeah.
But CR is like the specific CR questions. I think it should be, once you know how to approach a CR, like what's the conclusion, what's the approach, like what you are trying to figure out, right? Once you understand that, CR is straightforward. Like you can do it. Like even if you are weak at a certain, once you have the basic understanding of how a CR question works, it should be fine. With
Interesting.
and yeah, you need a lot of practice. By the way, once you if you stop practicing CR, I think we lose the touch. That's what I felt. Like if I stop practicing CR for a few days, uh, I made a couple of mistakes in the next mock. So yeah,
Interesting.
keep in touch with the CR. By the way.
Interesting. And you use only the TTP course to sort of cover up your basics for CR, or did you use anything else?
So in my second attempt, I went to the eGMAT also. Like,
eGMAT as well. Okay,
yeah.
understood. And what about for your RC? I know you already talked a little bit about that, but how did you overcome your weaknesses in the reading comprehension section?
Yeah, so the first thing is like I said, like I learned how to take notes effectively. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you don't need to jot down details of what is stated in the passage, but you need to have a clear idea of the structure of the passage, if you know what I mean. So, and
Mm-hmm.
like what works for me was if I face a passage in which I am not interested, or if like it happened in the actual exam also. I got a passage based on some 16th or 17th century Europe, like
Mm-hmm.
right, and I felt that that was very lengthy, and I could feel myself losing my grip, right? So in that case, I felt that it is good to invest a few more seconds in the passage itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the first question of the passage, it will take around 5 minutes or more than 5 minutes, right? Even, but if you do that, if like for in the subsequent questions, I could answer within 30 seconds. So the whole thing covered up. So
Interesting.
for me, what worked was I could say that it's good to always spend a few extra seconds on the initial passage,
Mm-hmm.
initial question, and then cover up it in the rest.
And the rest. Okay. So you would then not really read the whole passage that well, but you would sort of quickly skim, understand the structure, and then move on to the questions, correct?
No, like no. I think what I meant was like in the first question of the RC, right, that we get.
Mhm.
In
You would
that
spend
case, I
more time on that.
yeah, exactly. I put more time on reading the RC properly, so that in the next question I don't have to revisit the passage, right, and
Understood.
check what is saying.
Understood. And in terms of the materials that you use, it was same, right? TTP and eGMAT, or was there anything extra? Like some people, they say that reading books helps. Did you do all of those things as well, or you thought it's not that necessary?
So I wouldn't say I'm an avid reader of books or anything, but I from time to time I read some fictional books. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that helps. Like yeah, that maybe that played some part in RC also.
Interesting. We'll definitely go through which books you read. I don't know if you yourself remember.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
that might help
so
our audience.
no, it's not a regular reading kind of thing. It's like a free time. So last year, the one really good book that I read was Things We Cannot Say by Kelly
Mm,
Rimmer. I think that's one of the and one of the famous book I read last year was Khalid Hossain's A Kite Runner.
nice
Uh,
book.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Apart from that, I think I also read Never Let Me Go by Ishiguro. That was a good book. So yeah, I mostly read fiction by the way. So I don't know when
Yeah, I
like
mean, there are a lot of people who are like for RC, they are very religious when it comes to like reading, like even the economic times, they'll read up on that just for them to sort of get the grasp of, because a lot of non-native speakers, they do struggle a lot with verbal, right? So everyone tries different methods when it comes to reading comprehension. But I'm glad to see that it was more about how you approach the questions and rather than go through all of this back end techniques. But yeah, awesome. Okay. So this was verbal. Now let's talk about data insights. Your score went from a D79 to a D89. How did you make that happen?
So, one of the main resources that I used for DI, which are not similar to RC and verbal, was for DI. I bought the OG online question bank. I think if that's what it says, right? So they have a couple of questions in the online for the like online version of the prep material, right? So I bought
Mm-hmm.
that from the official website. Uh, like there if you want my quick feedback on that is like their questions are really good, like difficult question, and uh, like it builds your understanding on DI base, absolutely, but it
Mm-hmm.
won't help you with timing or like test taking approach thing. It will help build the concepts on, absolutely, but it won't, because their UI is pretty not so good, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so but the questions are really good in that uh, OG question bank. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so now DI has actually lots of like various questions, right? I think two parts analysis, table, the graphs. The one major thing that applies for all the questions in DI, I would say, is that like we have to learn what the graph is trying to say, first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, right? Maybe spend a first initial second before reading the question stem also, like what the graph is saying, like what does it compare, what does it represent, right? If you have a table, just see the table, like if you can spot any connections or correlations, whatever is there. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to get into the details of absolutely what every data is trying to say, but an overall overview is really helpful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and I'll maybe go over the types of question really quickly if that helps, right? So
Yeah.
for TPA, like TPA, we have two types, right? Quant and verbal. For the
Mm-hmm.
quant, it's problem solving, but the thing is, you for some question, it's better to start like solve it. How would I say? Like fix an answer for the first branch, first blank, and then try to connect it with a different the second branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm I don't know if I'm able to make myself understand, like if you fix the answer for the first one and then try to see which if there are any suitable answers that is compatible with it in the second column,
Mm-hmm.
right? That works for TPA. It works for TPL verbal also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming to the table analysis, my initial problem that I faced in table was, let's say we have three sub questions based on a table, right? Uh, so by the time I'm answering the third question, I would doubt myself that did I answer the first question correctly? Do I need to revisit and check?
Mm-hmm.
Since I have the question in front of me right now, do I need to again revisit and check if I did it correctly or not? So that's fine for one question, but if it continues happening for every question, it will take up a lot of time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So for TA, the important thing is you need to have a, like I felt that confidence really helps. Like I know that by like I have understood the table correctly.
Mm-hmm.
What I've answered in the first question is I should close it there. Just because I have it in front of me or just because I have the option to change it doesn't mean I need to recheck.
Yeah.
Right. Graphs question, I felt that like I always found them pretty interesting. Like I was always eager to solve graphical questions. So like I don't have any generic tips for graphs if you, as per se, right? But the thing that the basic thing works fine. Like if you
Mhm.
understand the graph properly, you will be able to answer it.
Makes sense. And
Uh,
what about the
MSR, yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, sorry, I was going to MSR only. What?
Yeah, I think MSR is one of the major things that that people are scared of. Like even I myself was scared of MSR, right? So that
Hmm.
was my major weakest point, even when going to the final exam. So MSR, what I again the MSR approach is similar to RC, right?
Hmm.
The note taking, it applies to MSR, right? The spending a few extra seconds on the tabs, that applies for MSR too. But one thing that isn't similar to RC, like what I found was, I always found that it's better to read the first question, read the question first, So when you get an MSR, let's say you encounter an MSR question, you know that the next 3 questions are going to be from the same passage or the same tabs. Initially, I rate the question first, right? Let's say is like the thing about MSR is that it has a lot of unwanted data, right? Like uh, it has a lot of unwanted information, a lot of unwanted data that isn't going to come to use. But if you read what happened with me, if I read the passage, I would get overwhelmed by the so much information. But the thing is, you won't need all the information when answering the questions. So I read the question first, let's say. I knew that I have to look for this fact. Then while reading the passage, I keep my eye out for, okay, if I find this, I'll keep this in mind. Right? So that was one thing. And yeah, another thing is MSR questions are very rare. Like even for all of the resources combined, I think MSR questions are very hard to build, and we have a very resources. So make sure to utilize the resources properly.
Makes
Like
sense.
don't right. Make sure like you don't waste whatever MSR practice questions you have in front of you.
Makes sense. Someone here asked, how did you deal with the time management on the DI section? Especially what sources helped you prepare best for MSR and TPA type questions, typically considered the most time-consuming question types?
I see. So I'd say the most impactful resource was the original guide for MSR and TPA. Like their questions were pretty unique and pretty you have to spend a lot of time on it. Right. And yeah, don't get stressed. Like even I couldn't solve the OG MSR questions like from that OG question bank. I couldn't solve them in a like stipulated 2 minutes time. Right. So initially I was stressed about it, but the thing is, in the exam, most of the questions wouldn't be as difficult, right? So it's take it. Don't be hard on yourself if you can't answer them within the time limit, right?
Makes sense.
Another tip with time management on the DI section is like DI is pretty forgiving when it comes to scoring, right? So what I mean is, like in Quant, let's say, if you make 5 mistakes, right, you will get a very bad score. Like your percentile will be very bad. It will affect. But at the same time, in DI, if you make 5 mistakes, you will still get a good marks. So the DI, so since the DI algorithm is pretty forgiving, like it won't penalize you much if you make a mistake, right? It's best that if you aren't able to make progress within a certain amount of time in a particular question, it's better to just skip it.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So I think that's one of the major time management thing in the DI section.
Understood. And what was your section order, if I may ask?
Yeah, mine was Quant, verbal, and DI, with the optional break between verbal and DI.
Makes sense. All right. Okay. So now we already discussed the verbal. We discussed data insights. Now coming to quant. I feel like quant must have been an easy section for you, or was it not?
Yeah, it was very easy actually. I think so. Like I said, the cat quant is a bit difficult compared to the GMAT quant, right? So GMAT quant was it was a pretty easy. The thing about quant is like don't get stressed thinking about you have to get everything correct, because that's a pretty heavy thought, right? Because by the time if in the first question, if you get stuck in a question and it comes to your mind that I have to get this correct, otherwise my score is done. It's not like that. Yeah, don't be too rigid about it. Like tackle each problem when it comes as it is, right?
Yeah.
For my case, I just thought of it as a like brief problem solving session, nothing else.
Makes sense. But you went from a Q84 to a Q90. So anything specific you did to get that jump, or it was same techniques?
So I would say in my first attempt, my order was verbal, DI, and quant. Right.
Okay.
So I think by the time I would say it's a good idea to start with your strongest section first, right? Because the exam is section adaptive also. So how well you perform in one section will affect the questions you get in the next section. So it's a good idea to start with the strongest section first. So the initial Q84 I think happened because I was fatigued, if you can say, by the time I reached the quant part, right? So maybe having a fresher mind and that helped in the second attempt.
Any
Again, in quant, yeah, sorry.
Any type of particular question types that you struggle with, or everything was smooth for you, smooth sailing?
Quant, I would say I didn't face any particular issue with any kind of question.
Gotcha. Understood.
Right.
The section adaptive thing, though, I heard about it in a different debrief as well. I don't know if it's exactly true, like how true that thing is. Is it like, how did you know that it's section adaptive? Is it tried and tested with your first attempt?
I wouldn't say that. Like what I can say you is, right? What I can say you is, see, in my first attempt, I gave my verbal right. I started with verbal. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I made I think around 6 or 7 mistakes like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I got a V80, I think. Right. In the second attempt, I gave my verbal after my quant, which was my better after my quant, which was my stronger section. I also made there I think around 6 mistakes this time in verbal, but I got a V83. So
Mm,
I am assuming my questions in verbal were difficult, so they didn't penalize me that much. Like
mm-hmm.
this is fairly based on my assumption. Like
Assumptions. Okay. Makes
yeah.
sense. All right. All right, so we discussed each section. Now let's, I think, go to the practice test. I mean, someone here did ask, apart from the official mocks, which other mocks did you find to be useful during your prep?
So in my second attempt, I gave I think 4 official mocks. So 4 mocks you can give each of them you can give them twice, so that counts for 8 mocks, right? And the 5 mocks from the eGMAT platform, right?
Okay.
And also I think the one free GMAT Club mocks that we get, full
Okay.
length one we get one free mock from the GMAT Club website. That one.
Mhm. That one.
So yeah,
How did you take them? Like, did you, you started, initially you started with an official mock, right? In your first attempt. Then you went
yeah,
to the experts global, you said? Yeah,
yeah.
experts global. And then what was your like timely process? Would you take them every week, or
So
you have
uh,
scheduled everything?
yeah, so in my initial attempt, I gave the 15 mocks in a rush. I was in a rush to finish all the mocks, right?
Yeah.
And that didn't help at all. So, it's a better idea to maybe keep some mocks unfinished, but it's a better to analyze the mocks that you have given properly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the other mocks, in my second attempt, I think I gave the eGMAT mocks, and they were good. Like they were pretty good actually. They're
Mm-hmm.
adaptive, right? The questions are standard. They're not too difficult, not too easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and when it comes to the routine of my mocks, this time I started around 3 weeks before my exam date, right? And every 3 or 4 days I started with a mock. I analyzed it over the subsequent days, and
Mm-hmm.
I kept the process continuing.
Makes sense. Okay. And you used up all your official mocks in the second attempt, or
I used
no?
up all my official mocks.
So you were like, second attempt is it. I am not gonna do this again.
Yeah,
Maybe.
like no one wants to give the exam, like right?
No, but sometimes people are, for the sake of like, what if, they end up like leaving a few marks, just in case, like, they want to take a next attempt, because you never know, right? There might
Yeah.
be issues like, on the, but that shows, like, how should I, mentally prepared you were for the test. You were like, okay, I know I'm gonna score good this time.
Yeah, like maybe get it done by this time, right?
Then do it again. And what was your score progression in the mocks in the second attempt?
So in my second attempt, I initially aimed for a 705 or 695, 705, this range of score.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the eGMAT mocks, I think most of like 735 was my average. Like when it I think in one attempt I got 695, but apart from that, I think always 700 plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to official mocks, there also I think I gave official mock 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. I didn't buy 3 and 4. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, I think mock 5. I think among mock 5 or mock 6, one of them I found it to be easier than the other one.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, the lower I think around 715 was the average in the
Makes
official mocks.
sense. So, but
Yeah.
none of the mocks you expected this score. A 755?
So like I said, like in the easier mocks, I used to get around 785, 780. Like those were very like
Mm,
in mock 5, I think I got around like 785, 785.
okay.
So, but
Okay.
I thought that yeah, maybe this is because it's an easier question and you won't get this easy questions in the actual exam.
Understood. Okay. Someone here also said, I have subscribed to the eGMAT for my GMAT prep, and I found the quant section in the mocks to be tough compared to the actual GMAT. Is that something that you also faced?
Yeah, you could say that. Like I think that's a valid statement, right? And in the like basically I don't remember in the eGMAT mocks especially, but I remember the eGMAT have the cementing quizzes. In the cementing quizzes, the mocks were the questions were a bit difficult compared to the how we get in the official exam. So actually, in the official exam, my quant was very easy actually. I think.
Understood. Okay. All right. So we've discussed almost your entire GMAT prep journey, except the last bit where the day of the actual exam, your test day. So how was the whole experience for you? The whole administrative process. Actually taking the test and seeing that score once it appeared. What was that like for you?
So I think the exam center was around I would say 100 kilometers from my house. So I left my house a bit early. Okay, so around 8 a.m. Right, I reached the test center around 10 a.m. Right. So like I said, the test center was pretty small, like only 5 6 computers, but it was pretty empty also. Like I was the only one who went inside. And since I know this is a familiar environment, I was a bit less stressed, if you know what I mean, right? So yeah, they do a initial checking, right? For you, you are not allowed to bring, I think, anything apart from your spectacles and your passport, right? So they did an initial checking, and I was assigned my computer. I started like the initial section was quant. Like I said, quant was a bit easy. I finished, I think, around 10, 20 minutes before that. Like I had a lot of time remaining by the time I finished my quant.
Yeah.
I sort of utilized it as an informal break. So, like I just calmed myself because I made myself mentally prepared for the verbal that was coming next. Right. Uh, yeah, then after that, in the verbal, things were going smoothly until I faced a like hard question on the. I think it was a philosophy, history passage, like I said, around 16th or 17th century Europe. So that was a major hurdle for me. I calmed myself down. I knew that yeah, so far the exam is going good. Nothing like uh, I can keep my. I have faced this situation before. So yeah, one of the major thing that I wanted to say is like be prepared for various scenarios that you may encounter. Right. So let's say, what would you do if you face a passage that you don't like? What would you do if if you're stuck in the MSR? Right. You don't know. If you know that the next 3 4 questions are going to be for the MSR, you are stuck like that. What should you do? Like keep yourself mentally prepared for those scenarios, because yeah, like we don't know like what may come, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, since yeah, so I just I calmed myself down. I know that yeah, I can do it. Like, and then after the verbal, I took the 10 minutes break, right? And then the DI section came. The DI, like I said, I felt the question were a bit lengthier. Like the statements of the question were a bit longer. So yeah, but the main thing is just keep your cool. Don't get stressed out during the exam.
Yeah.
Right?
And how
Because
did it feel like seeing a 755 appear on your screen?
yeah, that was because by the time I finished verbal, I could understand that yeah, I have made a few mistakes. Right, it wasn't a perfect verbal that I always aspired. So
Yeah.
I knew that but but I didn't let that get into my head. I treated the DI as a separate section, as a separate exam. If you can say, right. And the DI was good, like so it made up for the lacking that I got in verbal. And yeah, so by the time I finished the exam, I was really happy.
I think that's what all that matters. You're super happy with the end score, right? But
Absolutely.
again, congratulations. It's an incredible score, of course, and it definitely shows you've worked hard to achieve that score.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Do you have any last minute advice, anything that we missed out on that you'd also like to discuss with our audience here?
I think the base advice would be, find a strategy that works for you. Like, right? GMAT is not a typical exam that we have encountered throughout childhood, right? It's a like you have to. There is no negative marking that we are used to. There is no. You can't skip questions, right?
Mhm.
So find yourself a strategy that works for you. Stick to that strategy, right? And yeah, be prepared for various scenarios that you may encounter during the exam, right? So
Yeah.
that this doesn't take you uh, by surprise.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. And before I just take up maybe a few questions from the audience, any of the ones that we missed, is there, of course, people would have more questions watching this debrief later on once it's saved. So is there any way that people can reach out to you and, of course, get a few tips from a 755 score? Sandipan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. So I was just thinking what I should say. Like,
Oh, you can say, well, if any ways of reaching out to you, so it can be through the forum or any other platform that you're
yeah,
comfortable.
the forum is really helpful. Like, since I have got a lot of help from the GMAT Club forum, I'd be happy to engage there also, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'd say LinkedIn is a very good place to uh, connect with people. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right. Let me just quickly take up some of the questions that we missed here. Someone here asked, how extensively did you use the review feature? And was that something you practiced in the mocks as well?
Yeah, so the review feature, I think I mostly kept it like I mostly kept the review feature for DI, like I said, because DI, I knew that if I make one mistake in DI, I wouldn't be penalized that much. So I will just skip it for now. I will review it later and I will fix it. Apart from that, in the original test, I used the review feature for Quant because I had a couple of minutes in my hand. So I just reviewed the questions that were there, right? For verbal, I didn't get any time to review it. So, and I knew that in my mocks also, I didn't get much time to review a few questions, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, so mostly it was for DI, if you mean by the functionality of it.
Okay. And another one is, which course did you take from eGMAT?
I don't know the exact name of the course, but it was a 2 month subscription, like
Okay.
2 months GMAT focus course. If
Okay. Awesome. All right. I mean, that covers all of the questions because I already did ask some of them in between. So yeah, guys, if you have more questions, just feel free to reach out to Sandipan on the forum. And his debrief is there as well. You can give it a quick read. It might be a little bit more extensive than this. So yeah, go ahead and have a look at that debrief. But yeah, Sandipan, thank you so much for taking your time and doing this with us. It was quite insightful. And yeah, I wish you all the best for your MBA journey. And I'm hoping that we get to do an MBA debrief soon about your whole application.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Of
so much.
course. All right. Take care. Bye bye.